Look, let me say something as we cover a story like this. Staying on top of the news is so important, but with all the media bias these days, who knows what to believe? That's why I want to introduce you to our sponsor, Straight Arrow News. Straight Arrow News is a personalized news platform that gives readers fact-based journalism to inform. Welcome back to trustworthy journalism. Long Crime has been following this absolutely insane story since the beginning. You can check it out. Sierra Gillespie covered it as well. The details are so shocking, they are almost impossible to forget, as much as you might try. We have an international model, a former Miss Switzerland finalist, who was apparently strangled, dismembered with a jigsaw, and then police say her remains were pureed in a blender, all by the one person who should have protected her the most, her own husband. She was a mentor, a mother of two, and her life ended in an act of such brutal violence.
Now, this situation occurred last year, but the husband was convicted today, found guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, this is horror on another level right here. I'm just strolling through my timeline, and I caught wind of this. And all I can think about is the fact that everybody is talking about Sharon. Everybody is talking about the coach, Sharon Moore, Michigan State coach, former head coach of University of Michigan. You know, because apparently, you know, he's been fired because he, you know, allegedly broke into some woman's home, threatening suicide, made alarm threats. And, you know, he's been charged with home invasion, stalking, breaking and entering. And he was released on bond and actually fired from his job. But I noticed that white America is running away with that story. I mean, they're running away with it. The white supremacists are running away with it. The talking heads, the media creators and all of that. Meanwhile, today you got this sick bastard who committed the most heinous crime I've ever witnessed in United States history. Ladies and gentlemen, he pureed this woman. I started looking at some of the details of this crime. He cut her womb out. He decapitated her. They found her head in a bin. He cut her womb out. And if I don't know what that means. Means the whole box. He cut her whole box out, ovaries, you name it. Then took her body and made a smoothie out of her. You ain't never seen Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. You ain't never seen Freddy Krueger. You ain't never seen them do something like this, right? But meanwhile, everybody's talking about how dangerous black men are because you have this coach who crashed out over a woman. And I'm going to tell you this right now. You got all the white supremacists, your Elon Musk and your Trumps and your Nick Fuentes's, and you got all these individuals who talk about the most dangerous place for white people is around black people. And there's absolutely no truth to that. No truth whatsoever. The most dangerous place for white women is around white men. That's just a fact. And I can go as far as to say proximity killings are pretty much the main culprit, 9 times out of 10, right? But would you look at this sick, psychotic stuff here, man? Let's go.
Her husband was arrested. First said he found her dead, then changed his story, claiming self-defense, that she attacked him with a knife. The evidence told a very different, horrifying tale, though. And now there is a major update. Prosecutors have just officially charged him with murder. We're going to dig into the new charging documents, the chilling details they contain about what allegedly happened in that house. This is one of the most disturbing cases that we have ever covered. And it all centers on two people: Christina Joksimovic and her husband, a man identified in Swiss court documents and media as Thomas. There are Swiss privacy laws in place, so he's only being identified as Thomas. Christina was a 38-year-old from Binningen, Switzerland. She wasn't just any woman. She was a former model, a Miss Switzerland finalist. She had won the Miss Northwest Switzerland pageant back in 2003. But by 2024, her career had evolved. She was helping people. She had founded her own catwalking coaching business where she mentored aspiring models.
Mind you, she was doing all that and was a mother of two. She was a mother of two. And I'm going to say this, man, you don't never listen, even when it comes to horror movies, you don't see nothing this explicit. I know 2 serial killers that was aired in biopics that was not even remotely close to what this individual did to this woman. You had Jeffrey Dahmer, of course, who was eating people, another YT person. And then you had the guy that they recently did a biopic on. If y'all know the name, put it in the chat. They recently did a Netflix special on the guy that they made Texas Chainsaw Massacre after. The guy who would literally peel the skin off people and wear it. But, they like to call out our people savages. I have an issue with the fact that they're always trying to deflect and point the blame at our people as being the most dangerous, the most criminal. And it's clear to see who's the most vile. It's clear to see who the savages really are. Now, I want to continue here. Let's go.
We can actually hear her inner element coaching a young woman.
My name is Christina, the catwalk coach, and I'm preparing Natalie for her big show. Let's start with the first pose. If you want to look confident and sexy, take a step aside, turn, and lean back slightly. If you're wearing a dress, take one step ahead, lean back to highlight your legs.
In 2017, Christina got married. She and her husband Thomas, they shared 2 young daughters together. From the outside, they appeared to be a picture-perfect family living in an affluent area. And you know what? Just 4 weeks before she died, Christina posted photos online of a romantic couple's getaway at a luxurious hotel. But then you go to February 13th, 2024. Everything changed. Christina's parents got a call from their granddaughter's kindergarten that Christina hadn't shown up to pick them up. So worried, her father went to the family home. Her husband was there, the suspect. Told Christina's father that he didn't know where she was. Allegedly told Christina's father that he didn't know where she was. Now, apparently, while Thomas was distracted, Christina's father searched the house, goes down to the basement laundry room, described as this isolated bunker-like space. And there he sees this large black trash bag with what looked like blonde hair sticking out of it. So he opened it. And apologies for how gruesome this is, but inside, this father, you know what he discovered? He found his daughter's severed head. Police were called, they arrived, they took over the scene. Christina's husband was arrested in connection with her death. But now, all these months later, we have a major new development. On December 10th, nearly, 10 months after Christina was found, the public prosecutor's office announced that it had concluded its investigation and filed formal charges. Christina's husband has been officially charged with murder and disturbing the peace of the...
Now, mind you, in this situation, he was actually convicted. He was found guilty. But you got social media right now focusing on that coach. You got social media focusing on the coach who didn't kill nobody. And he was out on bond. Fired from his job already. We don't know everything that actually took place, but people will jump on the opportunity to do what? Target a foundational Black American. Actually, to be 100% with you, I don't even believe the coach is a foundational Black American. I believe he's a Haitian. And since the delineation movement started, brothers are definitely calling out who these people are. Actually, not Haitian, he's Trinidadian. And we don't know what happened in the situation, but he's not even one of us. So nowadays, when crimes happen on American soil, our people are distancing ourselves from foreigners who come over, immigrants who come over, who commit these crimes. And that's the importance of making sure our image stays protected. Yeah, Trinidadian. Yep. So, you know, this right here, but right now you got this individual who committed a brutal massacre to his wife, on his wife. He blended her. I don't know. He probably consumed her. I don't know. This man surgically removed her womb, decapitated her, and placed her head in a place where her father can find her, with her hair sticking out of the bag where her father can find her, and took her remains and decided to puree her. This is the worst murder you've seen in United States history. And everybody's talking about a coach who allegedly broke into a woman's house and got fired from his job. I tell you, they always want to make us the scapegoat, but we're not going to do that. Let's continue.
The dead. All right. Want to break all this down. Want to get a legal expert on who has seen both sides of the courtroom. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Safa Robinson-Ferrer. Safa, thanks so much for taking the time. I know this is a really, really difficult case to cover, but it hits on something that we've seen a lot in domestic homicide investigations, the changing story. From I found her to I killed her in self-defense. I don't care if it's a case here or abroad. From your perspective, as both a former prosecutor and defense attorney, how do investigators typically dismantle a case like that? I mean, how much is it a problem to say, well, you found her, now it's self-defense? You could, I guess, argue, oh, it was panic. He maybe didn't think immediately that someone would believe the self-defense argument. On the other hand, it doesn't appear that there is anything at this point to support that.
I think oftentimes in cases like this, the self-defense argument doesn't come into play until the defendant realizes that they've essentially been caught and that there are things that they can't explain away.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get self-defense after you done just mutilated the remains. You can't scream self-defense after mutilating her corpse. That's absolutely insane. That is psychotic. So anyway, let's go.
For example, they can't explain away how their DNA was at the crime scene. And of course, maybe they lived together in this particular instance, but there's nothing that would indicate that anybody else could have committed the crime. The timeline of events with respect to this case are fully established, where the husband in this particular case, there couldn't have been anybody else but him as the perpetrator. There's no alibi or anything like that. Oftentimes in domestic violence cases, and we hear this a lot, investigators preliminarily look at the spouse, the husband or the wife, as a possible suspect, because unfortunately, oftentimes, those are the individuals that are responsible for domestically related homicides, more often than not. So that's where investigators will typically begin their investigation, have a conversation with this individual, and then that person, for whatever reason, says, oh, it wasn't me, I just found her there. Because they haven't yet concluded in their mind what their best defense is going to be. And until they are caught red-handed, for lack of a better way to put it, by investigators, forcing them to say, well, yeah, I wasn't actually at the store, I was actually home, because the ring camera footage shows them there at the time, then they have to start concocting something that is more so of a self-defense related.
Yo, this is one of the most heinous, demonic murders I've ever seen in my life. I don't know any murders that's worse than this one. I mean, this was absolutely barbaric. Like, how unhinged could one person be? And let me say this, because this is what middle America has been trying to push. This is what white supremacists has been trying to push. They've been trying to push that white women are in danger around black men. That black men are dangerous, and they're trying to come to your communities, and we're the boogeyman, and you need to watch out for those brutes who finna snatch you off the streets. They use mind control, off of MK Ultra victim on that train, that guy that stabbed that lady up. They use mind control, MK Ultra, on him. to get him to crash out so they can start that narrative. And now, you got stories like what's going on with the coach, the former coach from University of, was it Mississippi? Whatever, Michigan, I mean. They try to use those stories. Meanwhile, white women are in danger with white men. That's the truth. They're the ones that are doing these type of crimes. And see, there's a lot of Caucasian women that's actually afraid to speak out about this. Yeah, I don't know what he was up to. Was he spirit cooking? Like what? This is demonic on another level. He had to be into some sinister practices for his mind to even go there with it. Let's go.
Theory for themselves, and that's where things begin to change. And it really goes to their credibility over time. If the cases make it to trial, then the jury is going to be able to see, well, initially they told us one story, then they changed their story once they realized.
Yes, at this point, he confessed to everything. He confessed to decapitating her because somebody said, did he admit to this? Because how did they find out he blended her up? Basically, what you're probably asking is how did they find out he strangled her to death, decapitated her, and whatever. He did confess. He did confess. Let's go.
Realize that they couldn't explain away certain pieces of evidence.
To be clear, though, and like we're talking about this in the middle of the Brian Walsh case as well, if there's evidence that a significant other dismembered a body, mutilated a body, it's hard to even grasp somebody doing that. And maybe a jury would say, if they have the will to do that to somebody that they loved, potentially loved, it's not a far stretch to think that they murdered them as well. The other way of looking at it is, if you have evidence of dismemberment, doesn't necessarily mean that that person murdered the victim in this case, right? Particularly if the body is in such a state where you can't easily determine what happened to them, or there might be a situation where the body's not found. So as bad as this evidence of mutilation is, and I have to explore it a little bit more, and there is evidence, by the way, about what might have happened to her, but as bad as the mutilation here is, and it's one of the worst I've ever heard in my entire life, it doesn't necessarily always mean that they're guilty of murder.
That's definitely true. And we have scenarios where, just throwing out a hypothetical, you might have someone coming home and their partner is deceased. Maybe there was some drug abuse or something of that nature. And because of that, and because they don't want to get found out about it, or they don't know what to do, maybe if they participated in those things as well.
Right. Well, so what's being said here is somebody can be dismembered and you can't automatically X out. You can't X out, self-defense, which I'm trying to understand where they're coming from for that, because if it's self-defense, how is the body mutilated? I guess they're trying to say somebody else might have mutilated the body for whatever reason, but this is not making sense. So I'm trying to understand what they're talking about, because he confessed once he was found out. That's really what it boils down to. Anyway, let's continue.
Well, then they try to conceal what ultimately happened. And there's a certain charge in certain jurisdictions called concealment of a corpse or dismemberment of a corpse and things of that nature. So sometimes, and I've seen on a very few rare occasions, where they cannot prove that the defendant actually murdered the individual.
Exactly. If there was a black person, they would have never said this. Like all of this rationalization, this is the problem I have. This dude is a monster. He just did something completely barbaric, and they're trying to come up with some rationalization of how it could have been self-defense. Get out of here. In our community, a woman can be beating the brakes off you. A woman can slap you upside your head, punch you, kick you, whatever. If you react physically, more than likely, your black ass is going to jail. Let's just keep it 1,000. That's how it works in our community. Your woman can be molly-whopping and jolly stomping you. She can be slapping you in your face, kicking you, scratching you, whatever. But they're rationalizing how this woman got dismembered and how it could have possibly been, how it possibly could have been, self-defense, because maybe they were on drugs. Maybe they were on drugs, and after he defended himself, the drugs told him to blend her ass up. The drugs told him, you know what? Let me go ahead and make a smoothie out of Shorty. Let me go Dexter. Let me just go Dexter on Shorty and then blend her up and then claim self-defense. Boy, I tell you. And you wonder why these people are so dangerous. You wonder why white-on-white crime is on the uptick, because there's a lack of accountability. There's a lack of accountability. Too much rationalization.
But they can prove that the person tampered with evidence, dismembered the body, and other things of that nature. Because in order to convict somebody of a murder, there has to be an establishment of facts that this person intentionally killed this person and how they did that. If you've got dismemberment, if you've got other things at play, it may be difficult for a medical examiner to truly determine how that occurred.
But the problem is it's coupled with everything else the defendant does. Like, for example, here, okay? Allegedly giving false information about what happened here and not telling Christina's own father what happened. I mean, it was Christina's own father who found the remains. When you hear that, how does it impact the case? Both in terms of, the emotional weight for a jury, but also the credibility it gives to the investigation. It gives to what this defendant was really up to. The father finds the remains, finds the decapitated head. That, I feel, is going to be a big factor that has to be considered.
Absolutely. And it's completely gut-wrenching. If a jury has to hear that a father, that a parent found their child dismembered in such a gruesome and horrific way, there's some sympathy that will likely enter into a person's mind for that father and for the victim here in this case. Now, a judge will always instruct, at least here in the US, that sympathy cannot enter your deliberations. However, jurors are human, and those emotions will come into play with that. Not only that, but I think that jurors are going to consider and think about, and we do know a little bit more about this case and the manner of how it happened, but jurors are also going to think about, well, if they lived together, why was the father the one to find her body in this way and not the husband? And if the husband found her in this way, why would he not have immediately called 911? Right. Rendered help, rendered some sort of aid, something to that effect. But
that's because, he thought he was going to get away with it. He clearly thought he was going to get away with it because of white privilege. Because when you have a system in place, the media mechanism that we have in today's day, where everybody's ignoring the actual data and statistics, everybody is trying to get, align themselves with white supremacy, essentially. And they know that anytime these horrendous murders, these crimes are going on, crimes against humanity, white on white crime, they know that, the scapegoat's going to be black people, to the point where nobody's even paying attention to them in middle America. That's how Charlie Kirk got popped. Nobody's paying attention to what they're doing. And it's a beast that can't be contained. This is the reason why there's so much implosion going on with these different fractions on the right. Because nobody is paying attention to how psychotic these people are becoming, how unhinged they're becoming. Why? Because they're least suspected. They're least suspected. Somebody said no need for a trial at this point. He's guilty. He's been convicted today. He's already admitted. He's been convicted and sentenced. He might have been convicted, but I don't know if the sentencing happened yet. But no, there's not going to be a trial because it's done. It's a wrap. So meanwhile, while you got everybody talking about former Michigan head coach, what happened with him, the prosecutors say, he broke into the woman's home, threatened suicide. He didn't even threaten her. He just threatened suicide. That's like if a cat just you know, head over heels in love, and she leaving. He broke in the house like, if you leave me, I'm gonna take myself out. And you know, he threatened suicide, made alarming threats. Not that he threatened to kill her, from what we're hearing. You know, he has been charged with home invasion, stalking, and breaking and entering. This man was released on bond. But everybody's talking about him, but nobody's talking about this guy who cut the box out of his wife, pureed her, desecrated her remains. He was convicted today. That should be a bigger story in the media. By one in the chat, y'all understand where I'm coming from here. We got to be on code now. Let's stand on FBA business. We got to be on code, because, you know, they always trying to make us the scapegoat in the media. Let's go.
Again, and going back to my initial point, was in these cases, a lot of times you see that the spouse is often responsible, and investigators look at the spouse because of the nature of these types of relationships.
Can you explain something to me? We have this significant time gap. What was it, 10 months between the arrest and the formal charges? I don't know that criminal law system very well, but from the outside, that feels very, very long. Based on your experience, what would be the reasons? What kind of maybe complex forensic, investigative steps would be happening behind the scenes that would lead to a delay like that?
It's certainly a long period of time. However, the things that could come into play, and what probably has come into play here, is the forensics and is the medical examination and toxicology reports on the victim. The likelihood is that because of the toxicology, because of the medical examinations that would have needed to occur in this case to fully establish the manner of death, the timeline of death, and all of those other sorts of things, are probably the reason why this has taken so long. There are a number of tests and examinations that the medical examiners do in these cases, again, including toxicology, including a review of the body to determine, again, what that specific manner of death was. And I think here it was ultimately ruled to be strangulation prior to the dismemberment of the body. So those are all things that come into play, and they take time. They do take time. So I think that's probably why we've seen that 10-month gap here. Also, the investigators have to do their due diligence with speaking to witnesses, piecing the timeline together, and really solidifying their case against the defendant. And those things also take time.
I want to start with the foundation of the prosecution's case. So it's the cause of death and what happened after. Now,
this is an open and shut case, man. I want to actually read some of the article, like, to get into more details. They're not really going into the details. So I want to give y'all the details, man. Matter of fact, I'm going to share my screen with y'all, because y'all have to see the details. There's a lot going on in the news today. A lot going on. So you got former Miss Switzerland finalist, for those just joining, who was brutally murdered by, you know, her husband. Miss Switzerland finalist has been charged with murder. Well, they got it worded wrong. It says the husband of a former Miss Switzerland finalist has been charged with her murder after a gruesome killing that has shocked the country. Hold on, let me get this full screen if I can. Well, let's do it that way, and let's talk about it. So what it reads is, because this gets into details, man, and this is nasty work. This is nasty work. So what it reads is, an autopsy report later found a power tool, garden shears, a blender, and chemicals had been used on the 38-year-old's remains. And she was 38 years old. She looked very good for her age. She took care of herself, had her courses, had 2 children. So she was on point. She was doing her thing. Miss Jose Moffic's parents had become concerned for her whereabouts when her children's nursery called to say she had failed to collect her 2 daughters. Her father reportedly found parts of her body while carrying out a search of the family home. Wow. So he tried to play it off, saying he found parts of the body. So he called the police. I don't know how I find, skin parts. I don't know how I found these parts of her body. There was just pieces of her flesh just laying around. I don't know how they got there. Damn devil. That's the damn devil. And the fact that he got away with it as long as he did showed you that white privilege is out of control. It's out of pocket. So he confessed to the murder, to the killing of his wife, March 24, according to the federal courts, but argued he had been acting in self-defense. So now it makes sense. A court ruling that September concluded she had been strangled to death. Investigators allege the suspect has demonstrated a remarkable high level of criminal energy, lack of empathy, and cold-bloodedness. Prosecutors announced on Wednesday that they have now filed charges of murder and disturbing the peace of the dead following a lengthy investigation. The 43-year-old suspect is in custody with a trial date to be set. He already confessed. He has been identified. I might be looking at the from a year ago. I'm just trying to get into some of the details because earlier I read about this man literally cutting out her womb, bro. This is sick. Based on the results of the criminal investigation, prosecutor's office assumed that accused murdered his wife in the shared residence in Bennington. The public prosecutor's office is not releasing further details regarding the circumstances of the crime. So, nah, this is not the right article, but y'all get the jits, man. Y'all get the jits of what's going on. But anyway, I just thought I'd make this story very much clear what's popping off with this. I got more material coming. There's quite a few stories that I want to cover. So if you like my coverage on this, stick around. We got more to talk about. And we going back to back with it. So I'm going to holler at y'all in due time. Make sure y'all join me for the next broadcast.